I'd like to call this meeting to order, September 17th, 2018, our regular meeting.
Roll call.
May I have a roll call, please, Mr. Calavita?
No. Mr. DiDonato?
Present.
Ms. Long?
Here.
Ms. Murray?
Here.
Ms. Peterson?
Here.
Ms. Pollara?
Here.
Mr. Sawicki?
Here.
Ms. Tracy?
Here.
And Ms. Wolf?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News, the Times, and the Trentonian on January 9th, 2018. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being videotaped for the purposes of the board review, future reference, preparation of the minutes, and viewing on Comcast Channel 19, Verizon Fios Channel 32, and the school district website, www.hvrsd.org. Maybe I'll rise to the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like someone to please move a resolution to approve the minutes of August 20th, our regular meeting.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Okay. Who will be introducing our new representative for this year? Thank you, Ms. Smith.
So good evening, Ms. Doldy, Dr. Smith, and members of the board. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Avery Lytell. Avery's sitting in for Shabani Shah, who is our regular student rep to the board, but Shabani is visiting Cornell with her family today, so she will be here next week. So Avery is here. We thank her very much. She is our student council treasurer. She's also the treasurer of the Red Cross Club at our school and is an active member of the National Honor Society. Avery plans on attending college and graduating with an English degree and then pursuing her master's in counseling as she wants to be a school counselor. So I present Avery Lytell for this evening's meeting.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to start off by going over past events of the school year.
Avery,
Yeah.
can you come a little closer to the
You
mic?
can pull it towards you.
Yep, there you go.
Good?
Yeah,
Perfect.
thank you.
On the first day of school, students were welcomed back wearing their ID badges and greeted by a brand new cafeteria. The football team started the season by winning 10-8 against Lawrence High School. Then, for the second game of the season, Hopewell beat Steiner with a score of 19-7. Hopewell Valley football has started the season 2-0. The field hockey team beats Allentown after a 7-year drought, winning 3-1. Volleyball gets their first and second wins of the season, 2-0 against both STEM Civics and Sterling High School. Girls soccer beats West Windsor Plainsboro North 5-1. Then there was an assembly for the senior class about mental health. The presentation was given by George Scott to the entire grade. Then there were small debriefing sessions, groups, after the presentation. Now on to upcoming events. The Hopewell Harvest Fair is on Saturday, September 22nd, where many school clubs will be holding booths to raise money. The day of homecoming is Friday, the 28th. We will have a pep rally during the school day, which will be shortened and focused around the homecoming court. But our main goal of the pep rally this year is to be more inclusive. We want to emphasize other aspects of the school other than sports teams. After school, we will have a homecoming food truck tailgate. It will be held in the athletic lot around 4:30 or 5 p.m. before the football game. This new event will have food trucks, including Nomad Pizza, Dos Fernando's Tacos, and Mr. Softy. There will also be games, competitions, booths for high school clubs, and other exciting activities. For this event, Student Council will be working to get a stage or raised platform so that announcements can be made and the students can get hyped up for the game by the dog pound leaders. The homecoming football game will be at 7 p.m. and other clubs, for example, the student government, will sell snacks during the game. On Saturday, because last year's was so successful, we will be having another homecoming dance. There will be a DJ, food, and fun.
Thank you, Avery. I didn't even recognize you. You were in Stephen's kindergarten class, I believe. Yes. Oh, my goodness. You're all grown up. It's nice to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
What was the date and time of the food truck fiesta?
I know.
What time will Mr. Softy arriving?
What's it?
Food truck will be Friday the 28th
Friday the
at 4:30 or 5 o'clock.
That's it.
So that's
All right, Mr. Calavita.
I heard tacos, pizza.
What more could you possibly want?
All things you love, Bob.
Well, I hope you'll be able to come and join us again. That you'll get to sub again.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Well, it wasn't that bad, right?
No, it wasn't too bad.
Okay, good.
Not
Good.
as bad as I thought.
Well, we definitely have had an exciting start to our school year. I am a football mom, so I've been really enjoying seeing our boys win for the first time in, I don't know, several years. It's been very exciting. Also exciting, I think, is, I mean, despite our season last year, there were so many people at their last two games, and it's, that school spirit really is just such an important piece of feeling connected to the high school. So it's been really a joy. And that's about it.
I have some special guests with me this evening, so I'll get to them in a second. But I would like to say first, just welcome back to everyone. We're happy to be here. We're happy to see everybody back in the district. We're at 3,006 students at last count, so we're fully stocked in our classrooms, and we're moving forward. It's hard to believe that we're already going into week 3 of our schools. But some just hot topics that I think the board is aware of, but just to make you aware of, we are still working through some transportation issues. Tonight was our first late bus run, leaving from the middle school and high school. So it left a little late. We're making sure kids getting off on the right stops and we have our rosters correctly. We're doing a lot of work to make sure that we know who's on the bus and where they're getting off. So that happened. We also Mr. Calavita has been working with the transportation department to work through some bus stop requests and working with parents to make sure that we have buses everywhere. Something I think everyone should be aware of, however, is that we're struggling, like most districts, with transportation buses, contracted bus runs, and with finding drivers. Our athletic runs, we're on a week-to-week basis with those. You might have read in the paper other districts have struggled with this also, and it's hitting us. We're doing our best. We called the director of transportation. I spoke to her at 7 o'clock this morning and then 6:30 at night in her office. So she's doing the best she can, but it's not easy to do that. But we're doing our best to make sure each and every kid is transported safely every day. Construction, I don't know if this will come up in finance and facilities, but again, the high school, we went through this in our August meeting, for those of you who are watching or maybe attending. Our timelines, we're still working through that with the high school project, and we'll be giving updates as we get through that. But the front entrance of the high school has been pushed back. The opening of that, once we get closer to an exact date, we'll let you know when that is working. And the back portion of the high school will take later on in the fall. Also, we have projects going on at every school. So we're working through all of those, and I saw a DirecTV commercial this weekend where the father was giving advice to his young son, and he said, whenever a contractor tells you date, add 6 months. And we're kind of at that point right now, so we're not saying we're 6 months behind, but we are working with our contractor and our architect. For us at this point, it's really about making sure that we have a quality product at the end of this, and making sure that the quality is acceptable to us. With that, I would just take a quick trip down memory lane and just acknowledge our Board of Education for a second as we begin a new school year. It's not always, for those of you who have been on the board for a while and those of you in the audience, boards really set a vision and set a tone for the district. And our board, I would consider exceptional in doing that and really providing oversight to us. So I want to take just a minute or so to just recognize some of the good things that have been accomplished. You know, I mentioned we're dealing with construction, the referendum, transportation issues, and I think they're all solvable issues that we'll be working through. But I would like to acknowledge just some of the work that's been done. So the board set a vision to increase accessibility to our upper level classes, and we were recognized by the AP, the College Board, for the District Honor Roll for increasing accessibility in our programs. Board sets a goal to remove all user fees for our athletics and co-curriculars, and rankings come out, and we are the #1 school in the county for athletes. Board sets a focus for really improving the quality of our lunch and our programs and food that we're serving our students. And we are recognized by the state for our programs. Hopewell Elementary is considered the top school in the, did I put it up there? The top tomato, the top school in the state for their farm to school program, and they'll be feted on Monday for this. Board sets a goal to increase safety and take a look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And through rankings, we're seen as the #1 safest school in our state. I'm sorry, in our county. This district. So board sets a vision and focus on to increase our sustainability and decrease our carbon footprint. 4 of our schools are recognized for the New Jersey Sustainable Program. We're going to get the other 2. Board sets overall vision for developing the whole student and move our district forward in academics and co-curriculars. And we are recognized as the #16 school in the district through the niche rankings. It doesn't end there. If you look at that in America, and Adam, you are the dedicated statistician, I believe that is a little over 1% in the top in the nation in terms of best schools in America. Doesn't end there. Let's look at our teaching staff. Best places to teach in America. Again, about the top 1%. This is one of the 1% you want to be in that doesn't get beat up in the media. So that's a good, these are all, you know, I'm trying to make the connection between board sets of vision and really the district kind of focuses on it, and we move through that. One of the top things is in recent recognition, and I'll be the first one to say that we should take all of these rankings and all of these accolades with a grain of salt. It's really about the students' experience in our classrooms, parents' experience with us and with our programs, but it does validate the work that we do. With that, New Jersey Monthly has highlighted the top schools in the state, and we have reached our highest level. There we go. Our highest level, beating some of our neighbors, being considered our high school is the top 16th, the #16 in the state. All of that happens because of the people around this table. The board asking tough questions, providing support, providing vision, and providing direction that is principals taking that direction and putting that into place. And I think the results speak for themselves about where we're going and how we're doing it. Transitioning that to what does that look like when we say that we want to develop well-rounded kids who give back. And if you look in the back of the room, our statement of what do we do, we're nurturing the unique talents of each individual, creating fulfilled, socially responsible, lifelong learners, competence and abilities and capabilities to face challenges. Tonight we have 2 students with us, one who has made a difference with us locally and continues, one who's not only made it locally but made it nationally, made a difference. So first I'm going to bring up Sully Myers, who's going to talk a little bit about what he's done locally to make the world a better place. Am I clicking for you, Sully?
Yeah, sure.
All right, let's go for it.
I mean, my goal, I was just going to do an Eagle project, and pretty much my only goal for the Eagle project was to support local baseball, because I am very passionate about baseball, and I've enjoyed the fruits of, Hopewell baseball for many years, so I'd like to give back to that. So all I did was I approached Mr. Calavita, Mr. Quinn, and the baseball coach, Mr. Harrison, and I asked him, what do you need done? So this is what he gave me. I don't know how many of you guys have gone to the varsity field. It's out behind Timberlane on the fields. And you may know that it's kind of dug out of the ground. So there's only one section you can get down to it. It's like a steady slope. And it's over time become rutted and eroded and kind of ugly. So, not only does it hinder the appearance of the facility, but also like the accessibility to, fans, especially disabled ones, elderly ones, young fans, So my goal was then to make it accessible and make it look better. So what my job was, you can click, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's your picture. Obviously not ideal for, an otherwise beautiful field. You can click again, I guess? Yes. All right. So my goal was to make this 84 by 6 foot pathway down to the field. So first, what I had to do was fundraise, because that is one key part of your Eagle project is, finding the money to do it. It's all about organization and leadership. But then, once I got the money, district workers actually helped me out a lot with setting up the pathway. So first we had to dig this 10-inch trench in the ground that, scouts can really do. We used this backhoe and, a lot of help from the district workers. Then we filled it with 6 inches of gravel. You can click again. I think you'll get a picture of that. Yeah, so that's 6 inches of this gravel base that's supposed to, make it firm. Obviously, I want longevity of the project was a big goal. You don't want it eroding in a few years. Next was 1 inch of this sandish base that the district laid down like the first inch. You can click. So there's your first inch of it, and then you can go again. But then we had to lay down the last inch of it and level it to make room for the 4x8 pavers that we used. So that was what my scouts did. We laid down the last half inch of sand, screeded it using this a level and this rope, and then laid the bricks down on top of it. So we did that for 84 feet by 6. So took
How long does it take?
a week and a half, probably working 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, something like that. So you can keep clicking. We made some progress, and there it is.
Sorry.
Quick trigger finger.
Don't worry.
Pretend you didn't see that one.
Spoiler alert, it's done. So yeah, there's the crew working. A lot of local boys from the scouts, from my scout troop, Troop 44, which is actually based down in Pennington Presbyterian, and also the local baseball program. They also helped out a lot. So if you're wondering whether I did all the labor, it's not just me. So now you can go ahead and there's your final pathway. But that's not all. Then the district came back in and helped me out with laying down this topsoil, cover up kind of the dirty areas that we had dug up. And then we put down seed on top of it. So that was the main physical aspects of the project. You can keep clicking. Yeah, so there's your before and after. Obviously, I wanted to make a... I also wanted to make it look cool because I'm playing there for 2 more years. I'd like us to, have a little mojo. So I spelled out Hopewell Valley on the pathway. There was a little question about whether the math worked out, but we figured it out. But then you can click to the last slide. One thing that I did not expect from this.
Really? I'm in charge of district technology.
I got it.
You're all-
I sent it to you a day in advance. You could have.
You too?
One thing I didn't expect from this project is to realize how much of this process I actually didn't know. I thought it was going to be oh, lay down this base, put down the bricks, all done. There's a lot more that goes into it that I didn't really realize. So I wanted to thank a few people. First of all, I'd like to thank Coach Harrison and Coach Coriel because they, supported me through this process. Coach Coriel, if you don't know him, he's the Legion coach. So not affiliated with the school, but he uses this field all summer long. So they supported me through this. I'd also like to thank Mr. Lauricella, who's the person kind of second on the right there. He's a local contractor and actually a scoutmaster at, I think, 1776. And he helped me out a lot with the process. And, he's an experienced professional, so he helped me out a lot. I'd also like to thank Mr. Lulis. He was there. By the way, this picture was taken on a Sunday morning or afternoon, midday. Mr. Colavita, Mr. Lauricella, and Mr. Lewis took time out of their Sunday, to help me out with this project. So I really can't thank them enough. And Mr. Lewis was really a great support throughout the project. He led the efforts to dig out the trench and fill the base. I'd also like to thank Mr. Colavita. He helped me out a lot with the business. I didn't really expect the level of organizational difficulty and, coordinating all these moving parts that it takes for these projects, and he helped me out a lot with that. Also, big thanks to my donors, because, fundraising is a big part. So that's Legion Post 339, based in Hopewell, the Lions Club, and also a lot of support from local Hopewell families, especially baseball families. They provided a lot of funds for this project. And finally, I'd like to thank the district in general for, they covered a lot of the funds too. They helped me organize this, and they also let me, serve my community. So I'm thankful for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just come around.
Oh, inside.
There you go.
Oh.
There you go. Perfect. Did you raise?
So the total cost of the project was $2,500. Those papers are nice papers. They don't get that expensive. I raised, thank you, I think about $1,800.
That's great.
Yeah, and
We're making you multitask, talking.
Yeah.
important skills.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Any other questions?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was one of our students who was doing some great work locally. Next, I'm going to introduce you to a young student who is doing some great things nationally. The question is, who's the awesome young teen who blogs about the Supreme Court? Why is a high schooler starting a conversation around the Supreme Court? Maybe you read it in Columbia Journalism Review. Maybe you heard it on NPR yesterday as she was a featured guest. I'd like to just welcome Anna up to the podium. And having been the the recipient of one of Anna's interviews, he's a tough interviewer. It's my chance to ask a little bit of a question to Anna and just talk a little bit about what you're doing, how you're doing, and how you got on the national, press tour.
Oh, well, sure. I didn't know I would be talking today, so forgive me if this is a little short. It's not as organized as Sully's was. I will not be able to match that. I became interested in the Supreme Court, I think, in freshman year during a study hall. I was just kind of browsing the New York Times website, and I found an article about a case that was before the Supreme Court. And that article linked to an oral argument. So lawyers will argue before the justices present their case, and then they write up what happens during that argument. I'd never read anything like that before, but I just kind of scrolled through, and I was shocked by how interesting it was. And from there, I just ate up oral argument transcripts, read a lot of books about the Supreme Court, and built up my knowledge pretty much over the next year and a half or so. And in March, that's when I started my blog. Very early in March, on like a Thursday night. I just thought it would be something fun to do, something so I could get my words on the paper. And there aren't a lot of kids at school who I can talk to about the Supreme Court. Shocker. But it's hard to be interested in something and not be able to talk about it. If you're really into football, you want to be in a fantasy football league with your friends. Same goes for politics or whatever you're interested in. So it was hard for me to have all this dumb trivia in my head and not be able to share it with people. So that was pretty much my motivation. I started the blog, and I wrote about historic Supreme Court cases that affected high schoolers. And I kind of shifted away from that over time. I started writing about major cases that the court was hearing at the moment, doing analysis of that, and interviewing people. That's what I really like to do, as Dr. Smith knows.
That's tough.
Yeah, I emailed him. I interviewed him about the random drug testing thing. And that was one of my first interviews, not for the blog, but in general, getting a feel for it. And since then, I've talked to a number of Supreme Court journalists like Linda Greenhouse and Adam Liptak, some law professors that I've really admired, Supreme Court advocates who've argued before the court, and one of my favorites was the sketch artist for the Supreme Court named Art Lean. He's a really nice guy, and he's there all the time because they don't allow cameras in the courtroom. So he does these colored illustrations very quickly. He has to remember things, be very nimble about it. So just a lot of fun things I was able to draw from that conversation. Since I started the blog, I've been lucky enough to have 5 other kids join me from around the country: Joe, Jackson, Brenna, Kai, and Caleb, from Alabama, California, North Carolina, New York City. And those are the friends I've been able to make. I'm really appreciative to them for reaching out to me, and they've made this whole thing so much cooler than I thought it could be. Not sure what else to say.
And you were just recently invited down, right?
Over the summer. It was cool because I was just going to be in D.C. anyway for just a journalism camp. I don't go down to D.C. that often, maybe once every couple years. And then a clerk for Justice Neil Gorsuch, who had seen my blog on Twitter, said, "Have you ever had a Supreme Court tour?" He emailed it to me. I was like, no, I've never had a Supreme Court tour. I'd love to, thank you. I typed his name in online to see who he was, and I was, of course, like overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh. So I ended up touring the Supreme Court in mid-July, shooting a basket in the basketball court at the top of the Supreme Court, walking right up to the podium, kind of like this. And Chief Justice John Roberts was about 9 feet away. He would be if there were an argument, so it was cool to visualize that. Yeah, it's been pretty cool and surreal.
It's awesome. Well, you made us proud.
Thank you.
And we're very proud of you, and thank you for all of your hard work, and it's really,
Thanks so much.
really neat.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So with all this passion, do you have any future plans regarding this whole
About the future of the blog or in general, I guess?
blog, what you would like to do with all of it? Do you have kind of like future occupational aspirations?
Not really sure yet. I think I might like to go to college in D.C. and be kind of in the center of things, Supreme Court being right there, politics, a bunch of other political nerds being around me. I think that would be pretty awesome. Beyond that, though, maybe law school, see how it goes. Maybe become a lawyer or a legal journalist or a judge, or not. I'll try to keep my mind open. I might hate the Supreme Court in a year, and that would be a shame. But
They have a great speaking voice, too.
I kind of have a cold right now, so it's a little deeper than usual.
It's always a good thing.
Glad it didn't happen for NPR, but yeah, thanks.
Awesome. If you could just kind of come around. So
Sure.
Thank you so much for joining us.
We get autographs?
Thank you. You win.
Yeah.
Good work.
And Madam President, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Am I allowed to go backwards a little bit? Because I didn't ask you that question. I wanted to ask you that question. Do you have any future aspirations with what you've been, your Eagle Scouting and your projects?
Believe it or not,
I may need to go by the mic if you're going to.
Oh, yeah. Good thinking. So that'll be surprising given what I'm about to say. Believe it or not, I don't have aspirations in like masonry or something. No. But I think what I'm into is I've really gotten into like engineering. I'm part of the first robotics team. As Dr. Smith knows, I may be emailing him incessantly these days. So I've really gotten into engineering. I'm super into like mechanical engineering. You know, I'm taking physics and calculus this year, enjoying that. So guess right now I'm planning on going into something in engineering. But, you know, like Anna said, you know, it's kind of too early to plan. I don't have anything in mind. I kind of also enjoy like art, industrial design, so maybe something at like that intersection. I really enjoy that. So, I don't know. It's trying to keep an open mind.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So hopefully that gives you a little glimpse into the world we're trying to create, those students. The accolades are great, and I think that it validates a lot of our work. But when you hear from students and you see students going towards their passions, it really makes you proud to be associated with the district and proud for the future of the world.
Thank you.
We have a regular meeting. If you are welcome to stay, and if you want, this ranks up there with Supreme Court stuff. You might want to blog about us. It's a
Just keep in mind it's called a board meeting.
yes, and you don't need to stay either if you don't. You don't. Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Avery.
Avery, can I steal your?
Bye. Thank you. My goodness, she's so grown up. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. Public comment is now open.
Hello, good evening. Hi, my name is Rachel Castria, 8 Newell Place, Hopewell, New Jersey, 08525 in Hopewell Borough. Was that all I had to say?
Yes, thank you.
So as you know, I'm Rachel Castria. I'm a parent to an 8th grader at Timberlane Middle School, and I'm here to address the new rules at lunch separating kids by teams. And I request that the school board reconsider and rescind the new policy this year. Timberlane parents sent their children to the first day of school this year with the understanding that they would get to see their friends at lunch, as it has been for many years. Parents and students received no notification prior that the school district has changed that seating policy, and now the children are segregated at lunch by team. which means they are separated from eating lunch with their friends. Most of them, some of them are not on the same team. My son is not on the same team as any of his friends. And it's all done in the name of safety. That's what I've been told. So our children had to navigate this emotional hurdle on their first day, which should have been a positive day at school, but pretty much all the kids came home complaining, including mine. I've had an ongoing email conversation with the principal, Nicole Gianfreddi, regarding these new rules, and thus far, what she has said to me has not convinced me that the safety improvements of this policy outweigh the social narrative risks to our children. Nicole Gianfreddi assured me that the teachers are, quote, focused on building team unity and creating new connections and friendships, and that there it will be an impact of the teacher-student relationship that is positive. But let's be real, this is lunch, just lunch, and it's not a social skills workshop. While I believe TMS has great teachers dedicated and care about the students, the children are more so being reprimanded at lunch because of these new policies, and it's creating a very negative relationship between teachers and students. The workshop on school safety, cited by Mrs. Gianfreddi as a partial reason why the lunch protocol has changed this year, is sorely out of touch with students' needs. School lunch was the one time our kids were guaranteed to see their friends and develop relationships consistently in a world of too busy working parents and highly scheduled extracurricular commitments. In recognition, I want to say the school district has really stepped up positively to help our students and our parents address mental health challenges faced today by our youth. So what I don't understand is why on earth the school district is implementing changes which are causing mental health challenges, by eliminating the crucial period of time our kids get to decompress, emote, and vent with their peers within the safe and natural setting of lunch. Seems counterproductive. When I asked my son if he felt I should mention anything specifically tonight, he answered, quote, just tell them that one of the reasons I don't completely collapse at school is because I get to sit with my friends and talk to them. It is one of the reasons I don't rage, end quote. May I continue at all or no?
The time's up.
Okay.
If you want to give it like 5-10 seconds.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say that there were many children that have been negatively impacted by this. The emotional needs of middle schoolers are at an all-time high, and it's the utmost importance to create a safe and positive learning environment. Their emotional needs reach and extend way beyond the school walls, and this is unfortunately spilling into our homes and our family lives. There's often many solutions to the same problem, and so I would hope that you would rescind this new safety policy and institute something which improves safety while also creating a positive environment for our kids. That's it.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Castria. Any other public comment? Okay. Public comment is now closed. I'll start with saying I appreciate what you came up to say, as I also have an 8th grade daughter and all of her 8th grade friends, and boy, did I get an earful when she got home. And we have another board member who also shares an 8th grade daughter, and we got together and talked about how our children reacted to what occurred as well. While I think we as parents all would have appreciated maybe knowing this was coming, the logic behind a temporary shift to teaming at the cafeteria made sense to me once it was explained to me. And one of the things I said to my daughter when she came home and she was all fired up, and I was like, she's like, well, can't you do something, Mommy? You know, my kids think I can do everything. And I said, well, maybe I could, but why can't you? And I said, why don't you and your friends go talk to Ms. Gianfreddi about it? And I said, one thing you have to realize is how much you love Miss Jean Freddy. She cares about you. She wants you to have a good time and have a great day. So don't you think maybe there's something more to it? And did you listen to what she had to say? She goes, well, it was really loud and we couldn't really hear what she said. So I do think there was a little bit of a communication crossover from what I understand. And I do think this is maybe inadvertently, but partially on purpose, turned into a little bit of a social project for the kids to come together and come up with solutions to a social concern that they have. So while I think as parents and as the kids on the first day might have been really thrown back by all of this, what I'm hoping and what I think I'm seeing is a shift to almost an educational piece to this. But we all heard you and the other parents and our kids. And so I just wanted to let you know I faced the same thing when my daughter got home. So I appreciate you coming and speaking to me about it. And Dr. Smith, do you want to add anything to?
Sure. I don't know if Dr. Therese wants to jump in because she was in the middle school most recently, but I can just share. I think this was communicated to students from the beginning that this is not a permanent change, that it will be changing and morphing over the school year. But one thing I think we all have to recognize and realize, while that was a good experience for your son for lunch, there's a lot of kids who don't have a good experience at lunch. Bullying is an issue at the middle school, at all middle schools. The vast majority of cases that we were reviewing at middle school, the bullying cases occurred during lunch. We also received, while I understand that there's a lot of chatter on Facebook, I have received communications from parents who have said, this is a great thing for my kid because he felt socially ostracized, couldn't find somebody to sit with at lunch. Now he has somebody. So I think there's a lot to be said about it could have been communicated better. I would agree with earlier, but I think going forward, it was a change. It was put into place, and my daughter's in another district, but they have it for 2 months where they sit with their team before they can move around. Intentionally, so kids aren't sitting by themselves and dealing with and you actually get to meet some new and different kids you might not have had an opportunity to discuss with. And coming from the kids, Nicole did a lot of work at the end of the school year and over the summer with focus groups with students. And the cafeteria is the most challenging place for them socially. So it was an idea that she wanted to put into place. We supported that. Just for the record, it didn't go to the board for approval. It's not a board policy. It's really a school-based policy. So while the board, has oversight of the district, they weren't involved in this decision with this. So it's, but I think it's helpful to start the conversation. I think it's helpful also to really encourage, I guess, more dialogue with folks, with parents also, because, we know that there's been a lot of discussion outside of school, and talking to Nicole as recently as this evening, the number of emails and parents who have contacted her versus complained about it on social media, I think that's not helpful either. So if you want to talk to people, and me also, I think I've gotten 1 or 2 emails regarding this. I know there's a lot more people sharing their concerns. I wish we were at a point in the world where people would feel more comfortable coming, and I still have open office hours. I'm here every morning at 7:45, and somebody can swing by and just talk to me. But we tend to use social media rather than getting to the people directly. All that being said, I think I'll end where I started. Is Nicole said that this was never intended to be a permanent change. It started out as a way to address some of the issues, keep teams, the security aspect and understanding where kids are, but also the social aspect we've been dealing with at the middle school for the last couple of years is keeping kids in the environment of their team. I don't know. If you want to weigh in.
I don't think anybody's ever spoken so much about just one thing.
Oh, me?
What?
Sorry.
No, it's...
No.
Is the red button on? Pull yours over.
Your mic over.
Yes.
Or you can stand at the thing if you want.
That's fine.
That's it. You have a presentation?
So I want the red light on?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes,
yes.
there you are.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
So I think Dr. Smith already commented on the struggles that I had as principal, quite frankly, Mr. Suzo had, and which is not an uncommon problem for the middle school for the cafeteria. That is a high traffic area for bullying and for social challenges. Our counselors spend quite a bit of time in the cafeteria trying to help students navigate their relationships. But also the students need to understand, and I think that I know that Ms. Gianfredi is very open to their voice, and I'm sure, I'm almost certain that her hope is that their leadership voice is going to come out of this. And I was there today at their faculty meeting. Timberlane has planned a lot of activities for the students to develop social emotional learning. And one of the things is when you're confronted with a challenge, like something that you're unhappy with as a citizen, and they are citizens of that school, and it is a democracy, it's not a dictatorship, that's not how she operates, that's not how I operated, that's not how Mr. Suzo operated. The students have the voice to make this change, but they have to understand that there's a way that they need to engage in that discourse, which did not happen when she opened the floor for them to come up with ideas. That's why some of the students couldn't hear, because there was some disrespect going on there. So they're going to give them an opportunity this Friday to really dig into how do I get my point of view across, and how do I listen actively, and how do I put together my ideas to support what I want to do. And the students are capable of doing this. They came and approached Ms. Gianfredi after the Parkland shootings, and they said that we want to organize a walkout. And the beautiful ceremony that was designed for the children was all designed by them. And it was very respectful. You could have heard a pin drop in a whole gym full of students. So it was amazing. So I know that this will be a temporary change, and they will come up with a solution that will allow them to do what they need to do and sit where they want to sit in the cafeteria, but also be safe, respectful of each other. And I'll throw a couple hints out at there. They probably should come up with some sort of plan for when somebody violates those norms of the cafeteria. How are they going to address that as a student body? So, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I know that you had said, or Dr. Smith had said, that it's not a school board issue, that this is something that is, I guess, contained within Timberlane Middle School. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. I meant it was a school board. There's not a school board decision.
Decision, okay. So if I needed to further my comments to anybody, it would be to Mrs. Gianfredi. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have an ongoing, email and dialogue with her. I will consider, definitely encouraging students to speak out. And I do agree, I do not have a social media account, not one. And so I don't know anything about social media and what parents have been saying on there. And I have not commented, obviously, because I don't have a social media account. But I do agree, if parents are upset, they should come to you. They should come to people appropriately instead of just chit chat. So thank you very much for saying that. I do appreciate that very much. Everybody, thank you for taking your time to address this concern. Thank you.
Thank you. You can also reach out to any of us anytime to we have district website, the website has our district email too.
The appropriate chain of command, though, if you were interested, is from the principal, you would go to the superintendent.
Old business. Anything that we need to address? Good. Consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent
Oh, yeah.
agenda.
May I have a motion,
Second.
please? Thank you.
Go ahead.
The discussion, anyone? Okay. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. Finance and facilities, Mr. DiDonato.
So I have a change order that I'd like to move. You want to talk about it?
No, well, second first.
Yeah, let me.
Who wants to
you moved
second
it.
that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Essentially, the change order is in reference to three main items. One of them is actually a credit. One of our contractors had an activity to install some things up in the ductwork. We felt it best to have this our preferred mechanical contractor to release the work to a different contractor. That'll come later on, so that debit will come out in a later bills list. We had a couple other things. One of them happened at TMS. We had an emergency breaker that went bad, so we've got a change order for the 6275, which was just to fix the breaker, and then the next line item, which was the $31,000, is actually to replace it. So change orders, that's what we have. We met today, and we talked about some of the stuff in the referendum. Obviously, we have some delays, and I think we're all thinking the same thing. You know, when is this thing going to get done? Why isn't it done? And all this other stuff. And I just wanted to echo, Dr. Smith, and that is, at this point in time, we have the best possible people watching the work that's being done, and what's being done is of quality. So two great things about this is that we're sticking within our budget. Obviously, there's some change orders here and there. The timeline's delayed. Some, in our control, some out of our control. In the end, we have delays. The biggest piece to this is that it's not impeding our activity. It's not impacting the school, the way it operates. The bulk of the work will be done before the end of this year. There may be some other large pieces that may go into next year. At this point, we're uncertain of the exact end date on some of these items. The important thing is that we're getting really awesome quality. The majority of the things that we've pushed to get done this year will be done. Roofs, some of the structural stuff at the high school, windows, air conditioning, libraries, paint, media centers. We had a lot of things going on this year, so there's a lot of moving parts. So big benefits there. And we talked a bit about, some of the other things, some of the bus route stuff and other things, but primarily focused on those two things, those two areas. That's it. Any questions? Concerns?
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Personnel. Ms. Polaro.
I never know exactly what I say. I make a motion to move the agenda.
Yes. Perfect.
Make a motion to move the personnel agenda.
Can you slide that down, Jen?
Yep. Now I need a mic cover. Great.
Motion.
Great. So what you see in the agenda is the list of all the appointments that were at the staffing appointments that were needed to start the school year. In our meeting tonight, we talked a lot about that. We also discussed the recent transportation issues that Dr. Smith brought up earlier. So big shortage on bus drivers, and talked through some solutions on that we think make a lot of sense, trying to get some more substitute bus drivers on the docket. We talked about the upcoming professional development on October 8th, which is the safety and security training, the ALICE training that Susan will lead. And we also began looking at the SMART goals for the Personnel Committee, which are focused on the safety and security training of the staff and educating parents in the district about that.
I think the thing to point out about the bus drivers that we didn't mention was that it's because of a change in the law that we're having this issue. The bus drivers are no longer now just required to be able to drive a bus and have the proper license. They now actually need to know about bus repairs and mechanics, which has now disqualified a large number of otherwise, acceptable bus drivers. So that's what we're stuck with now in a workforce that's been shrunk artificially, that we are now, everybody's competing to find those guys who actually have that. So it's an issue.
Yes.
Sounds like a good opportunity to learn. Yeah. My daughter's not going to get inside of a car unless she knows how to change the tire and the oil and fill the gas, and got to do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, until people have gotten up to speed, we're sort
Come
of
to my
stuck.
house, I certify you.
There you go.
After asking that question.
Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Long?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Polaro?
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki?
Yes.
Ms. Tracy?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato?
Yes.
And Ms. Murray?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Oh, I think we need to go to ed program. It is.
Jenny, you need your mic.
That's it.
What happened to Rosetta?
I'm pretty loud, you don't need this.
It's-
I think everything is on consent. It's just the regular stuff we approve, fundraisers and field trips. I think we have Mandarin curriculum reading this time too, we're approving. But at our meeting this morning, we debriefed a little bit about George Scott, who I don't know how many people were able to attend when he presented before the high school's back to school night. But he met with our seniors that morning and talked about mental health. I don't have a senior this year, so I didn't get any feedback from my own kids, but from other parents who have seniors and from the district, it sounds like it was pretty successful, and the kids really took it to heart and got some meaning out of it. We discussed a little bit about how we have to make it not a one-off, that we have to continue to carry this into our curriculum, not just in our wellness classes, but really make it a focus. And that led into our discussion of our district goals for that EdCom is working with. And we pretty much spent most of the morning talking about our mental health, social, emotional learning, and how to bring that into our curriculum. We discussed our second chance learning. We discussed our sustainable going green movement. And that was pretty much what we discussed this morning, I think.
Thank you.
I'd like to suggest, I think that all of the topics that you discussed this morning sounded very interesting. I would like to suggest that you carry those forward to a board retreat or a work session.
And Rosetta
because-
puts them on, just to interrupt you, Lisa, she does a really nice job putting them in. If you go to the library on board docs, she does a good write-up on it too. So if anybody wants more information, so we don't spend 20 minutes talking about it at board meetings before the next retreat, if you're interested in reading a little bit more about it.
Right. I mean, I think that it is nice to have the information in writing, but I think that at the board work sessions, where you can actually have interaction of people who don't necessarily get to participate on Ed Committee, but would be interested in these topics, because I think that they're topics of general interest.
Yep.
And I think that, overall, everyone on the board might be interested in where the social emotional supports are coming from and where that's going. I think
That's
that
a
would be
great idea.
helpful. And I will say, my son is a senior, and one part of, I went to Mr. Scott's, is it Dr. or Mr.? I went to Mr. Scott's presentation, and I really liked when he said that you want to make sure that the kids have chores. And my son said, he said it in theirs as well, and he thinks that Mr. Scott was completely off base and wrong about the idea that children should learn responsibility and have chores.
Yes.
And I told him that I happen to agree with Mr. Scott, and I trumped the
Yeah.
in the vote. But I do, all kidding aside, I do think that philosophically, as a district, we should be focusing on letting parents and kids know how important it is for them to be taking responsibility for their own actions, and how to be part of a family unit or just a social unit. It doesn't have to be a family unit. So that's why I said I think it would be a good idea as a board for us to be able to discuss some of these issues of where we want that to go.
And just a little plug for the positives of social media. I actually had a flat tire, so I had to, I couldn't be there. So I watched it on Facebook, and there were a number of other people watching it on Facebook, and you can text stuff. Like, I couldn't see beautiful Rosetta. I was so upset when she did her little part. So I was like typing in, I can't see the speaker. And then they fixed it. So the Facebook Live is really pretty cool, especially because I really wanted to be there, and I couldn't get there right away. I got there maybe halfway through, but it was nice to be able to be part of it from, virtually. So the positives of social media. And speaking of social media, community relations.
So we had a community relations meeting today. I would say that the two, we talked about several different topics, but the two items that will move forward that will be documented in our minutes and and we would like to see as a new procedure is a change in the way technology is reviewed. Historically, technology was part of the Ed Committee. Then it became such an important part that it became its own committee. So when it became its own committee, it had one focus, and depending on who the chair of the tech committee was at the time, the technology committee had different focuses. So our board made a decision to do away with the tech committee because it seemed to be morphing kind of all over the place and there was a lot of overlap. And what was decided at the time was any technology that is curricular related should go before the Curriculum and Ed Committee. Any technology that is facilities related, such as infrastructure and cost, that technology should be part of the Finance Committee. And a new software package had been introduced and went out to the parents, and there was no communication to our Board of Education, so the board didn't know it was coming. And the good news was, it was software that the board has been asking for years. So it was something that we've wanted, so it was a very, very positive thing. But the negative part was that as board members, we weren't able to spread the word, to help the community know that something that we've wanted for years is coming. So what Dr. Smith committed to at the meeting was that we would make sure that any sort of technology that's going to be related to curriculum or go out to parents or be involved with teachers will come through the Education Committee prior to the announcement, especially to parents. So that was one of the items that came up. And then the other item is smaller, but convocation is the first day that the teachers come back. And because a lot of the board members are at work during the day, they're unable to see the convocation information, and it's something that a lot of board members are interested in. So we are going to be taping the convocation from now on, so that way if board members, and I mean, he can decide how that's gonna go, but I think that it's so board members will be able to see the convocation. So we talked about a few things, but those were the two biggies that came out of communications, was that we will change the breadth of the committees to make sure that Education Committee does go over anything that's education related with respect to technology, and that convocation will be recorded.
I don't know if this is the right forum to I have a question and a recommendation around how district emails are going out. I mean, emails are going out announcing certain things. Like today we all got an email about something about Hearts. As a parent, a 6-session parent. Did anyone else get that?
Nurtured Heart.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was like an email that said, open this attachment to learn about the hands-on, the
Nurtured Heart.
Yeah, and so then everybody's really looking at all of this stuff on their phones now, right? And so you have to you open an email where you can see it because it says perfectly. Then you have to open up this PDF where really most of that information can go directly in that email. And I think it really is a barrier because the email didn't say, hey, this is this great parent workshop that, it was like this very dry sort of thing. So I don't know what
So we're dealing with some formatting issues, which is one of the reasons why we changed the focus, because the bullets and what the feedback that we got for some parents was that without the attachment, they just shut out of it if there's a bullet, if they can't read the first couple of sentences.
So you're saying if they can't read the attachment, or if they
No. When we were using containing all the things in the email, for example, like the focus would go in an email, but the feedback that I got from parents, it was so frustrating because the formatting was off that they wouldn't read it either. So, I mean, it's just, I guess it's a tough one because, is it an extra click? Yeah, but
you can't read it. When it's in a PDF that's not mobile responsive,
Mhm.
you can't read the full.
So there's a setting on your phone.
Yeah. When
That's,
you export to PDF, you can set it for mobility.
But we do that. But there's a setting on your phone that you just flip a switch and it says view full page, and then you can do that.
Okay, so then I would suggest to somehow using the communications to educate people about that, because what I feel as I'm working and trying to stay on top of all these emails and all this stuff, and what other folks have said to me, it's like these attachments feel like
Mhm.
we're losing these important pieces of information because.
And I think it is a matter of specific instance. In the example of the focus that Dr. Smith gave, the focus goes through the Board of Education and superintendent along with 6 other schools. So part of the reason why we had to do that is because if somebody was in the 6th school, they didn't want to be scrolling through and having to wait, whatever. So basically we had 6 bullet points. You want Bear Tavern, you go here, Timberlane, here, here, here. So it would make sense that you'd have different links for each of them. In the case like you're talking about where there's only one item, then maybe or maybe not. You know, they'd have to decide when that's appropriate. And
So
when
let me ask you a question. Is it the extra click or is it the attachment?
It's the attachment. I
So,
can read the
so
attachment.
okay, so like, I don't know if you looked at the focus, but what we did was if you want to read it, click here. So you click here and then that takes you to the different site. And that's where we could address some of our formatting issues. If that was not an attachment to the email, if it was, hey, we're doing blah, 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 to learn information, click here, and it wasn't an attachment to your email, it was taking you back to the district website
right.
where you could see it.
That seems like
That's-
that makes the most sense, right? Like,
Okay, so that's
Right.
Susan Polera.
it does make sense.
Okay, we'll try it.
But
I mean,
then
we're,
you could go to the website and always have that information, or I can access.
yeah, nothing would make Christine Abrams happier than more people coming to that program. So anything we can do, absolutely, that's good. Yeah. No, I love it. So we'll,
I know.
we'll work, no, but we'll work on it. That's good. That's good feedback. So we'll work on that.
Yeah, thanks, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
Oh, no problem. It's just because, you know, and then like, just a lot of information and trying to find it again.
Was there anything else, Susan?
No, those were just the 2 main ones.
Okay, great.
But I will say that we got a demo of, what is it called, Imperial?
Imperial.
And it's pretty cool, so. People will learn more because we are going to try to communicate that out a little bit better.
Oh, excellent. Thank you,
But not
Lisa.
with an attachment.
Perfect. The website.
Right to the website.
Yeah, straight to the
Hey, the new iPhone's out, so
That's-
there you go, big screen.
Right.
Policy.
Okay. All right, so first, can I get a motion to move the policies up for first reading?
So moved.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you.
So it may only feel that you reviewed every policy that we have. This is so I apologize.
A couple extras.
Yeah. So we only really started with 6, okay? And those are policy and regulation 5350 on student suicide prevention, policy and regulation 5561 on use of physical restraints and seclusion techniques for students with disabilities, policy 5533 for student smoking, and policy 5535 for passive breath alcohol sensor device. So I appreciate everyone reviewing these. These are not just small editorial changes. I would say each of them had a significant component. Student suicide prevention had procedures for clearance of students reviewed coming back into district, as well as reporting requirements. Physical restraints dealt with post-incident reporting. Smoking dealt with the variety of definitions. Pete, I think you came up with every potential
Yes,
definition for smoking
transdermal.
Yeah.
and tobacco we could come up with. Let's see, and the alcohol sensor, if anything, was making some of what we're doing there procedurally closer to what we're doing with the random drug screening policies. So, there were important things there, so I appreciate you all looking at those. Afterwards, we wound up having a couple of additional ones that were necessary for us from a procedural standpoint to have in place soon. And I won't go through them in the same order. Basically, we had policy 8561, procurement procedures for school nutrition programs. This is something new where for our food service vendors, in terms of some things that they have to procure, such as equipment and such for the district, they have to follow similar types of procedures related to bidding. They have thresholds and stuff similar to what we normally have to do. We have policy 8505, local wellness and nutritional standards. It's fairly self-evident. But if anything, I think one new thing was the establishment of a district committee made up of students, parents, educators, etc. And we also had a revision to policy 5512, which is our HIB policy. So the key things with this are it expands HIB to include perceived power imbalance. So what we have always perceived as traditional definition of bullying, as well as some procedural aspects related to evaluation of staff who may have a write-up on a HIB. So there's a lot there. Now, the one other key thing I want to make known here is we're bringing these forward. Policy committee is recommending these be approved for first reading. As far as the HIB policy is concerned, as well as our policy and regulation for school security, it is the committee's plan to review these in depth next month. So while we are recommending approval of, for first reading, the HIB policy here, it's by all means our intention. We immediately will go back to it and address some additional things that we want to see in there. Okay.
So I have some questions on some of these.
If I could just acknowledge while we're doing that, this Adam's work, again, I keep saying it, but tonight's policies represent 65 pages of policy gobbledygook and language, and Adam is a great resource to the board, to the administration, and to the community in making sure that these policies are in good place.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool.
So I had a few different, the first one's probably a pretty easy question. And that is with respect to the suicide prevention regulation. One of the things that was added, which makes sense at the surface, but I just wanted clarification, says the superintendent or designee shall contact appropriate organizations such as the Traumatic Loss Coalition to provide support to students, staff, and community members as needed. This is generalized support, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, so this is not particular support for the student or students in question. These two aspects in 9 and 10 relate to, 9 is more or less particular to those in close association with the individual, and then 10 deals more with the school community and the district community at large.
Okay. Because I just, assumed that's what it meant, but I had privacy concerns if you were talking about bringing in somebody to support the students, and it doesn't say anything about notifying the parents first. So I wanted to make sure that we were just talking about
Yes.
possibly doing generalized programs that go to the students and staff, and it isn't about a specific suicide ideation. It's about a generalized program that might go to students or staff.
Okay, so from that standpoint, actually it is, Lisa. If you look up in E, what that falls under is response to suicide committed by a student.
Okay.
So if this is an event that we have one, we would have a night or a day or counselors available at all time, or a Traumatic Loss Coalition coming in and providing supports for everybody. And
Okay. Well, in that case, it obviously isn't a privacy concern because everybody knows what
Correct.
occurred.
Yep.
So that's all I was pointing out is
Yep.
that,
Okay.
if there was an attempt, you're not going to
Correct.
draw attention
No.
to the fact that there was a suicide attempt. And
Correct.
This is just generalized support to students, staff, or community members.
Correct.
Okay. And then on the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, I wanted to just make a comment about it. I think that adding the real or perceived power imbalance information in here is extremely important. It's been something that's been missing from the law, and it was embarrassing to tell a parent, if your kid got shoved into a locker and have their money stolen from a bully, that doesn't count as bullying because that's not how our definition works. So the idea that we're fixing that and saying a perceived power imbalance is now considered bullying is a huge improvement in the law, because it was just stupid how it was before, because the way that everybody thinks of bullying was not formally defined as bullying. But I did want to point out, and our administration has pointed this out before, but I had a couple parents approach me about bullying, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. It is not necessary to file there might be bullying, but it's not necessary to file a bullying question in order for a kid to receive discipline. I'm not saying that if there is bullying going on, you should absolutely file a HIB report. But parents were under the impression that unless something is going to a principal as HIB, that nothing's going to happen. And then if it was found that it wasn't HIB, nothing was going to happen. And as our entire board is aware, the principals have it within their ability to apply consequences to any actions that take place, regardless of whether there's bullying or not. So while I think that this is a tremendous improvement to the policy overall, it's not necessarily, what I was trying to explain to some parents is it's great that they're improving the policy, but our principals should have been acting on this all along anyway. So if there was a power imbalance and some kid's getting thrown in a locker, the kid doing the throwing is still getting disciplined, regardless of whether it's being classified as a HIB or not. We are taking the appropriate actions, and we've always been taking the appropriate actions. So I just wanted to reinforce that, because I got into some interesting conversations, and we have these parents who believe that if something isn't on a HIB report, classified as a HIB, that nothing happens. And I said, we've had principals taking actions on students way before there was ever even a HIB law. You know, before there was a HIB law, there was principals who were giving kids consequences for their actions. After the HIB law, during the HIB law, any other time, that is still happening. So I wanted to make sure that we had that communicated out, because I do think that this is a very appropriate fix to the policy. But regardless of how that occurs, I think it's important that all of our principals know and do that they have the authority and responsibility to provide consequences regardless of what the HIB law says. So that's my only comment on there.
Okay. So
We need a
Roll call.
Yeah.
No.
Voice vote.
First.
That's what I meant.
For the first reading.
Everybody.
Correct. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion carries.
Okay, now on to the second. Now, can I get a motion to approve the policies and regulations up for second reading?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so here we have, it's only 6. And actually, we're revising policy and regulation 1550, Equal Opportunity Anti-Discrimination Affirmative Active Program for Employment and Contact. We're revising policy 3125, Employment of Teaching Staff Members, addendum. We're adding an addendum to regulation 5538, which is our random student testing regulation. This more or less codifies the specific procedures under which we're going to be conducting the random testing. And the other thing is we're abolishing policy and regulation 3244, in-service training. This doesn't mean that we're getting rid of in-service training. It just means that the content within there is more now appropriately covered within other policies and regulations. So we're abolishing those two. We reviewed those for first reading last month. They're up for second reading. Now there have been no changes to them in that time. So I think these were generally a little bit more procedural in nature compared to this month's. I'd say the main thing of interest is just in terms of the equal opportunity employment policy and regulation. It was adding in some additional procedures in terms of soliciting disadvantaged businesses, traditionally disadvantaged businesses when we're bidding. So any other questions? If not, policy is recommending these for adoption.
I have a question. So you're adding an addendum to the random drug testing policy. Have we implemented this, have we?
Not yet.
Okay. So once this addendum is approved, then we have the go-ahead, is that? So we waited until this was?
Well, we were planning actually we're working with a vendor. This allows for a vendor. But most folks that we've spoken to said I shouldn't say that, you really wait until the school year is kind of rolling before you do it.
Okay, so they shouldn't expect it tomorrow.
They shouldn't expect it tomorrow. They will not, no, there will be no. But even going forward, most districts do not do it the first week back or the first 10 days back.
Okay.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Okay, roll call vote, please, Mr. Calavito.
Ms. Pilara,
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki,
Yes.
Ms. Tracy,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. DiDonato,
Yes.
Ms. Long,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
and Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So we don't need to do any discussion on routine information, right? Okay. Review of the board calendars.
Motion.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Does anybody want to?
They're on the screen behind us.
Awesome.
For this one here, is there a possibility the board could be here by 5:30
For which one?
for negotiations?
Negotiations.
October 3rd.
That's a great idea.
You're coming.
It's gonna be tough because I'm not working from home that day. Actually, no. You know what? I'll work from home that day. I can come at 5:30.
I'll shut down the Northeast extension.
All right, so I'll make that change.
But October 8th isn't listed as a day off. Schools are closed that day. It's an in-service.
It's not?
School is closed that day.
I never have that.
On this, but yeah.
We'll get it on
Looks like you're working. You're not giving yourself a day off.
there. We never get.
Well, he doesn't get the day off.
Yeah, it's in service.
No, we're training.
It's actually a big training day for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got it in there already.
So, community relations, are we talking about like the 10th? Is that okay? Okay.
Time?
How about policy on the 11th, 8:30?
6:30, Lisa?
Yeah, if it's okay with Lee.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
It's actually better.
6:30 for communication.
And we need EdCom 8:45.
Is there another-
What was that? I'm sorry.
On the 15th, EdCom.
I was
8:45.
policy work on the 10th for you too? 11th is,
10th? Yeah, that's fine.
that work for you, Tom? The
What
10th?
time is your
6:30.
6:30?
I can't do it.
10th?
When can you do Pete?
I can do like Mondays or Thursdays or Fridays.
Friday morning?
That's fine.
12th?
Is that the 12th?
What's 12?
Policy at what, 8:30?
8:30?
Yep.
Okay.
We going virtual, Adam, or are we going in person?
Virtual would work. Well, although I'd say, okay, so that's a good question.
I mean, anybody
because-
can always convert,
Yeah.
come in person.
If we could do in person for those two,
I was
it would
thinking
be
that
nice
might actually
if
make
if you
sense.
can make that work.
I agree. I can make it work.
Those are.
Yeah, Friday I'm
security
home.
and-
Security and HIPS.
Security and HIP.
Oh, those are going to need to go to retreat anyway.
What do you think? Is there a? Would you want to try something like, Tom? I don't know whether you'd be ready, but like, I'll be here on the 1st. We could always try something like that day. We could either. Is that too early for you?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we have a work session, so just looking. I mean, we have the policies more about the philosophical discussion that we were going to have. So, The sooner the better.
Yeah. Is there a convenient day you could meet in person, Pete?
Fridays are good.
Right.
Fridays are really good for me.
Okay, I mean, if you'd prefer the 5th, we could try the 5th. If not, the 12th works.
And we could do the 5th. I mean,
Okay.
the 5th,
Why don't we try that?
get it going.
It's gonna be like an early morning one.
So the 5th instead of the 12th, or the 12th and the 5th?
No, the 5th instead of the 12th.
12th. And in person if we
Yep.
can manage it.
Yep.
Right.
Speaking of security, what's the current status on the audit that you were getting?
They have not scheduled it with us yet.
Have we asked to find out?
Yep, we actually even spoke to Jeff Gale and said he's on our radar and he'll get back in touch with us. I actually submitted another one last week in writing, another request.
Nothing for new business?
Actually, if I could mention one thing, seeing the
have
calendar.
to approve the
made me
calendar,
think of
sorry.
Something. In terms of the back to school nights, I'd like to give the district some credit because every class I went to at the high school, back to school night, the teacher talked about the redo retake policy that
good.
we're doing, and it came across very well thought out, and came across, I would say in general, every place I went with some enthusiasm from the teachers. So, I think
Great.
the perception is that it's a good thing.
That's good.
I agree with that.
Good.
We still have to approve the calendars, right?
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We're moving on.
It's okay.
I heard new business.
Yeah, that was my fault. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Motion carries. I thought it was interesting that the hallways didn't seem as crowded as I would have expected for the high school back to school night.
Really? I thought
Yeah.
it was really crowded.
Well, and all the teachers said that too. They were like, "Are there less people than usual?"
Well, they're really white.
I know. I was like, maybe the hallways just seem bigger.
Oh,
They
this
seem bigger.
space. Wow.
I didn't feel like it was less crowded. than
I was going to
last.
say, I still got caught in the past
Yeah.
between the 200.
And every class I was in was pretty full.
Actually, I was pleasantly surprised with one of my son's classes, did not have a lot of kids in it. And I think they'll have, it was a bioethics class, and I think they'll have really good conversations when it's like that. So that should be very cool.
All right. Public comment. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting, so the matter is researched by the district administration. Public comment is now open. Okay, seeing none, public comment is now closed. So, may I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
We will be discussing harassment and imitated.
We have none for this evening, and we
Oh,
have
no.
no special litigation, but we do have a personnel matter.
to discuss.
So we are only going in for personal, or
A
special, ed- or
per-
no?
personnel matter.
And
Okay.
will action be taken after?
No, it's more information well, I guess probably, yeah.
Okay,
So you say action.
Action may be taken?
so action will be taken. So all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained? Motion carries. Thank you for coming.
Aye.